Aloha! Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming here. We know it takes a lot of your time and expense and dedication to be here with us this week. And we have such a wonderful faculty. I just get so excited every year I get a chance to be here to listen once again to such wonderful doctors. And I hope that it inspires you as much as it inspired me. Actually, I am up here speaking to you because of a friendship I developed with Scott Shannon years ago. And I said, where, Scott, did you possibly learn all that stuff? And he handed me a brochure for this organization and for this event. And that was how I came back in 2002, 11 years ago. So I really appreciate all of you being here this afternoon when it is so beautiful outside. I feel guilty about doing this inside, especially coming from Hawaii to put this all in this room. And I want to thank you for being here. And we're going to talk about healthy sleep. And as an appreciation from me to you, I did give you all an hour of extra sleep last night. So I, just want to let you know. So. One of the main thing that I do as a doctor, teacher, healer is to help my patients learn how to help themselves. I help my patients, them, learn how to help themselves. That's the main message. And as I go as a psychiatrist from room to room as we do and taking care of children and teenagers and families and adults, I think about the universe. And this is how I want to help you change your paradigm today. Perhaps this talk is more challenging than some others because of what you can do for your patients. It's really different. It's how you need to conceptualize this whole business of healthcare. And so what I have learned in integrative holistic medicine that we are all in time and space. Time and space. And if you see here on the screen, you're seeing this hectic, chaotic gentleman or woman with the briefcase zooming around from 8 in the morning or 7 all the way through the day and through the night. In an integrative holistic medicine, we think in the big way. We're all part of this universe. We all are members of nature. We all have the chi and the life force and the spirit within us. And we all are in community. So whenever I work with any child or adult, I think about that. Not about simply what they're coming in to present to me, if it's ADHD or depression or substance abuse, but I think about how they fit in and how I fit in with them to help them learn to help themselves. And so the goals of integrative holistic medicine are optimal health, happiness, and success. We help maintain homeostasis with nature and the universe. This is what we've lost. We've lost homeostasis with the nature and the universe. And as Dr. Shannon said earlier, it's about balance. It's about homeostasis in our lives, respecting the natural harmonious rhythms of nature, which have been taken away from us in the culture that we live. So we are here to not only help them with their presenting symptom, but also to help them prevent illness and to help them learn how to love themselves, love others, love nature, and love the whole idea of the universe that they are living in. And I need a clicker. So love is the greatest healer of all. Wrong way. So as we mentioned earlier, the 4 pillars of health and happiness and success are your attitude, good nutrition, exercise, and sleep. And as you've heard this morning, or rather the day, we heard a lot about attitude, exercise, and nutrition. And only one of our speakers has mentioned sleep. And that was Wendy, when we were talking about what herbs might be helpful for sleep. So the lost child in this picture here, the weakest leg of the stool as far as healthcare providers, is understanding the importance of sleep. And we know that our genetics and our inner and outer environment strongly influence the interactions and the results that we're going to get. So we want to be like that figure in the center of the clock now that knows how to use the natural harmonious rhythms of nature throughout the day. So what is sleep, after all? It's an essential biological drive. It's a need and a requirement for all living things. All living beings require sleep. And the quality and quantity make a big difference in the quality and quantity of our lives. And this is the way I share this information with all my patients. Sure, we talk about exercise and meditation and how to reduce stress, but one of the things I do emphasize a lot is how are you sleeping? So my goals for this presentation, this brief presentation today, is to help you truly change your paradigm about sleep. I will provide you some suggestions to help your patients get better, healthy sleep, and hopefully will increase the importance of sleep in every one of your patient care interactions. If you're in the emergency room, if you're in your office or the hospital, think about this new way of looking at health and longevity. So now let's begin. For centuries and for the ancients long ago, they all knew, especially the Native Americans and other cultures, that everything in nature is in perfect rhythmic harmony. This includes the basic pulse of day and night. So we've really lost the beauty and the wonder of flowing smoothly into dusk, night, sleep, dreaming, awakening, and the next day. The beauty of it has been taken away. And the reason why is our culture. Our culture has shifted us much more to the hectic day and the hectic night. So now we're all rushing around. We stay up late at night. We're using electronics. And we're missing out on the yin of the yang here. The yin, which is the night, the darkness, the mystery, the beauty, the coolness, the feminine, yin represents all those things. And so, but I just want to point out that possibly the most important pillar or leg of that chair is sleep. For sleep is actually very essential for survival. It's essential for reproduction, all of our metabolic processes, our memory consolidation, functioning mentally and physically during the day. REM sleep is important for emotional processing. And we do all this so we can prevent acute and chronic illnesses and allow healing to occur. Healing will not occur if someone is sleep deprived, regardless of what else we do for them. Let's look at some sleep facts. 36% of your life you will spend sleeping. This equals 32 years of your 90-year life. I think we should pay attention to getting a good night's sleep. So the percent of shift work is in our workforce is 20%. But approximately 30% of daytime workers and 44% of shift workers get less than 6 hours of sleep per night. And way over 90% of adults require between 7 and 9.5 hours of sleep on a regular nightly basis. 33% of adults have problems with sleep, 15% have chronic problems, and 50% of our seniors have sleep problems because of medical problems and an environment where they might live. So what is the average number of hours that we all need? When we were infants, all infants require about 16 hours. So do kitty cats. The teenagers require about 9 hours of sleep, and they are now only getting as an average 5 to 6 hours at night. Many times they're up much later than the adults who go to bed. Adults need 7 to 9, as I mentioned, and are only getting 6 to 7.5, and seniors also require 7 to 9 and are only getting 5 to 6. So what happened? Well, the biggest thing that happened occurred in 1879 when Thomas Edison He was an obsessive-compulsive inventor. He was frustrated that he couldn't work longer than daylight. And in his basement of his house, he came up with the concept of the light bulb. In 1879, things started to change. That actually enabled the urban industrial lifestyle to exist because we now had light at night. Now, light at night is wonderful for many things that we do, but it also is very pernicious, very destructive. And that actually is one of the causes of why we as humans everywhere have so many acute and chronic illnesses. Because everything is controlled by biological clocks. And you can't mess around with nature. And then the electronic world has hit, and now we've had this cultural shift away from honor and respecting the natural cycles of day and night and into what we live in today. And we as leaders and as teachers and as healers and physicians have a responsibility to work like crazy to educate our patients and ourselves and our families to return to that lifestyle. Well, let's see who said this. Sleep is actually a criminal waste of time, a useless heritage from our cave days. Well, none other than your friend Thomas Edison. Politicians also have had major influence on our culture, and sleep is an enemy, a necessary burden, a waste of time. One of the great leaders of the world in the past, Margaret Thatcher. So it has been taken away from us. So what we now are doing is suffering from darkness deficiency. Sleep and dream debt cause dangerous mental smog and days. Light at night undermine life's fundamental rhythmicity. We now have, instead of honoring the evening and having a peaceful experience, we have rush hour, which is much longer than 1 hour, prime time, happy hour, late night TV, drugs, stimulants, alcohol, second wind. They all interfere with the yin and the yang of natural sleep and wakefulness. Homeostasis and balance requires rhythm. Health requires rhythm, repetition, regularity, and routine. Rhythms not only rule you, but they rule our world. And they are powerful and they are healing. Rhythmic activity of our body and our mind include our hormones, circulation, digestion, brain waves, and all of our states of consciousness. That's awake, asleep, and dreaming. So, falling asleep. Actually, falling asleep is a more powerful drive than staying awake. So falling asleep comes out of the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and it comes out of the homeostatic sleep drive, and it's basically modulated by GABA, which turns down your adrenergic receptors, helps you get out of your thinking and your worrying and your agitation. GABA helps you naturally calm down. It's in 80% of every one of the synapses throughout your body. There is the teeter-totter of adrenergic and GABA. Melatonin is a hormone produced by the pineal gland, and that, of course, that helps not the adrenergic system, but the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the brain to help the circadian rhythm system calm down. It helps us set the clock for when we are going to be going to sleep. It doesn't help us necessarily stay awake. These are two of the major chemicals which help us fall asleep. Adenosine is another one. It's a minor player, but it's still an important one to help us calm down and go to sleep. And coffee works by blocking adenosine. That's not a board question, I don't think, since I don't know what the questions are. But how does coffee work? It blocks adenosine. Caffeinated teas does as well. So what about staying awake? Well, if there's a football game going on, we just talked about the sleep side, and now we talk about the awake side. It takes a lot more players to stay awake. There's actually 6 of these guys. One's not up there. Acetylcholine didn't make the team. And so we have norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, histamine. And those are all important to wake up and stay awake. Histamine is what helps us wake up in the morning, not be hyper like norepinephrine does, but to wake up. And then there's orexin, which was discovered actually down at Scripps Institute in La Jolla in 1998. They came up with this compound they found as a neuropeptide out of the hypothalamus as well, which is kind of the middle player in the football field, between the awake players versus the sleep players. Orexin is the modulator. Now, what helps regulate all this? Interesting enough, our biological clocks and our genes help regulate all this. The nuclear receptors, REV and ERB beta, control the period genes. These are the main clock genes in everyone's genetic profile, the period genes, which are our core genetic clock genes. Clock genes control the circadian rhythm system and the homeostatic sleep drive. These clocks regulate us, keep us healthy. The main one comes right out of your hypothalamus, out of the circadian rhythm system. And that main clock influences all the other clocks. So we need adequate sleep for the CRS clock to control the individual clocks within each one of our major organs, such as the liver, heart, pituitary, and gut. Otherwise, the body starts to have chaos, dysregulation, and illness sets in, all controlled by nature's clocks. So orexin is one of the neuropeptides within the hypocretin family. It is the sleep-wake switch. It's genetically controlled by these genes. And if deficient, then you have a flexible, like what I call like a very fragile dimmer switch. Wake, sleep, we call that narcolepsy. There is now about to be released on the market a new medication which will be an orexin receptor antagonist, which should help increase the availability of orexin, keep us awake during the day. I want to briefly mention 12 serious negative consequences of being sleep deprived for all of us in this room and for all of our patients. Number one, average of in America 100,000 accidents, 1,500 auto accidents, about the same amount on the national level as from alcohol and substances. Two, deficient production of all your neurotransmitters. They are made in stage 3-4 sleep. Three, decreased dreaming, which is for emotional processing, and you will not have as much tranquility or emotional resolution of your day's problems unless you experience about 20% of REM sleep during the night. The sleep deprivation will also cause brain changes, brain cells to die, apoptosis, early dementia, and many neurodegenerative disorders, which leads to major problems. Poor memory, poor concentration, problem solving, emotional control. And next one is big, creativity. Creativity, our children and teens and all of us. Creativity, learning, and executive functioning all get damaged by not getting enough sleep. There are at least 117 genes that are only working at night when you are asleep. And if you don't get enough sleep, those genes are not activated and you will have problems. The other things that happen with sleep deprivation is that there is less AKT, which is an insulin signaling protein produced by the adipose tissue and leading to insulin resistance, poor glucose metabolism, weight gain, and obesity. So you see that everything is on a clock. And the next is increased insulin resistance by 30% equals about 10 to 20 years of metabolic aging. Decreased immunity will also result from sleep deprivation, and because we get increased interleukin L6 and CRP and increased autoimmune disorders. And you will hear a lot about inflammation and autoimmune disorders here this week. Keep in mind that if you don't get enough sleep, whatever else you hear, it probably won't work very well. If you don't get enough sleep, you increase ghrelin, which is produced by the stomach and the gut, which makes you hungry during the day, and you will not produce enough leptin produced by the muscles and the adipose tissue, and therefore you will be hungry during the day and you will gain weight. It'll therefore lead to increased depression, anxiety, bipolar, suicides, substance abuse, increased inflammation, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, strokes, diabetes, and cancer. Wow, all that if we don't get a regular good night's sleep. So, what are you going to tell your patients to avoid in the evening? First of all, you want to tell them to avoid light at night. LAN, light at night, especially in the last hour to hour and a half. I turn down the lights around my house. Second thing is electronics. So I don't like to use electronics for at least an hour, all electronics, an hour before going to sleep. It's really hard to do. Remember I said this is probably one of the most difficult lectures you might hear because it involves you. Doesn't involve your patients. You know, so we also want to reduce noise. A big one is reduce worry, anxiety, and anger. Worry, anxiety, and anger probably result in about 40% of all insomnias, all sleep disorders are from worry, anxiety, and anger. We hear about sleep apnea, and we'll talk about that, and many other sleep disorders. We want to avoid alcohol. It does impair stage 3-4 deep sleep, and you need stage 3-4 deep sleep to produce your neurotransmitters and your precursors for all of your hormones. You don't want to eat late, and you don't want to use stimulants at night, and certain medications do have to be avoided. So common drugs that cause insomnia are on the list that you see before you. And take a look at those, and you can always refer back to them. So a disturbing article that was written by Dr. Kremke, also from Scripps Institute. They're getting a lot of credit this talk. I mean, it's just the way it is, and I want to thank them for organizing such a wonderful conference for us. Thanks, Scripps. So Dr. Kripke has been studying sleep for a number of years, and he looked at thousands of case studies in the entire California Kaiser system and the Scripps systems around the country, thousands, and he noticed a strange association which he did not expect to find. So first of all, I just want to mention that 6 to 10% of U.S. adults take a sleeping pill for poor sleep. Patients using hypnotics in this big study suffered 4 times the mortality than patients who were free of these medications. This is the scary part. The cancer incidence was increased by 35% among those using sleeping pills if they used them more than 132 nights per year. I show this to my patients, and they get scared. They don't know what to do with it. It's really helpful. I have this article around, the summary of it. The health risk for hypnotics users is greater than the health risk for current cigarette smokers. Wow. This gal came out of this association between the Kaiser and the Scripps chart reviews. So he approximated that in 2010, sleeping pills may have been associated with 320 to 570,000 excess deaths in the United States alone. And here's the reference for that. Came out of the British Medical Journal, 2012, and that's also in the chapter that I wrote in your study guide. But it's scary association. So now we also know we all flew here. And many of us went through time zones. I went through a lot of time zones. And we can experience jet lag. So when we look at that, time zone changes lead to a disrupted circadian rhythm clocks, disruption in the genetic and the metabolic processes in our body, and this will last for usually a couple of days for each time zone you cross. Well, they also found out that these time zones and sleep disruption disturb the period 2 genes. And another study that I just thought was interesting is that pilots have a 47% increased rate of prostate cancer to their own age. What about the flight attendants? I don't know what happened to them, but I mean, you can imagine that they also suffer this, and a number of us who fly a lot, this was pretty scary for me as well. We also know that those who fly a lot are exposed to high levels of cosmic radiation and electromagnetic fields, and what does that do to our sleep? So we want to avoid light at night, particularly blue light. So blue light is in the 460 to 480 nanometers wavelength of light. Blue light is everywhere, especially at night. If you look at this screen that I'm looking at right now, and of course that's why I put blue on that on that slide, and you'll see throughout my study here, wasn't to put you to sleep. It was to show you that blue is very common. Most of the color behind your cell phones and your computers and your iPads and your television is blue. Even LED alarm clocks, many times the lights are blue. Those are stimulating. They stimulate the melanocyte receptors in the retina, and they stimulate the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, and it keeps us awake. So blue light keeps us awake. Red light puts us to sleep. Now, when we talk about spending the evening in the red light district, I'm not sure. I've given more thought to that. Can't figure that one. Little research. So let's review. So, good night, healthy sleep is necessary for good health. We know that our culture had made a very significant change in us getting a good night's sleep. We know that our body is controlled by biological clocks, and these can control our physiology and our sleep biology. And without getting a good night's sleep and having all these clocks in sync, there will be pathology. So what do you do to do a quick assessment in your office? I just named a couple of things. One would be to make sure to ask the patient, if you're in the ER, hospital, in your office, you can always ask a quick sleep history. If there are many available, and I use them myself, easy to get a hold of sleep questionnaires. I ask them to keep a 2-week sleep diary at home. I also ask them to keep a dream journal for these 2 weeks. There are new devices that you can rent for a couple of nights, take them home, run them out of your office, that correlate the synchronization between your EKG and your breathing. And those machines can also then see about if you have any sleep apnea. They're able to measure the movement of your body during the night, and also the oximetry of what's going on throughout your night. And they're very easy to use. I can't mention any names right here. If you want to know, see me afterwards. But this just fits on your wrist, like the newer blood pressure cuffs that we use. So this will also report your sleep cycle, how much time you spend in each one of your sleep stages. So then, of course, we want to always check for obstructive sleep apnea or central sleep apnea. You want to check for restless leg syndrome. The autography is already being taken care of in those devices. That's one of the things that it functions as. And you may need to refer to a sleep lab once you know if you have any more questions after you use the device at home, or definitely refer to a sleep specialist if you need to. So this is what I think about when I do a quick evaluation. So what are the fundamental requirements for treatment of all patients? I like to teach them to start thinking about and living within the normal, harmonious rhythms of nature. Change the way that you behave during the day and at night. Calm down and slow down in the evenings. Be thankful in the evening. Be grateful. Stop worrying and getting so anxious and fearful. Stop and enjoy the 4 seasons of every 24-hour period. On my office in Maui, it overlooks the Pacific Ocean. And every night when it gets to be sunset, I stop with my patients from still there. And I say, well, we got to stop now. And the sun sets right over there every night on the Pacific Ocean. And it's beautiful. And they could be talking to me about some very painful, sad, difficult issues in their lives. And their face changes. They relax. And I said, let's continue. And they say, where was I? Where did they go? They went back to what was natural. The appreciation of dusk. Maintain a healthy body weight, good nutrition, daily exercise, and a spiritual practice, definitely a spiritual practice, and you will sleep better. This is what I share with my patients. Love yourself and love others, and do something good for yourself and somebody else every day. It helps get a better night's sleep. I put just want to wrap this up soon, and I just want to touch on a few of the treatments, and you will see this in your book as well. And there are 6 different categories. And I don't have enough time to mention all these, but I put a star by recommendations. Alcohol, about 23% of people abuse alcohol at night as a way to fall asleep, as their sleeping pill. It's not a good idea. It interferes with stage 3, 4, and it wakes them up. Same things with benzodiazepines. The non-benzo GABA medications like Lunesta and Ambien and Sonata are occasionally okay. The antipsychotics, only if the person is psychotic. Over-the-counter meds like Benadryl could be occasionally used, but develop a tolerance and with withdrawal. Hormone replacement therapy for hot flashes is a good idea, but we'll come up to something else in a moment here as well. Marijuana we use occasionally for patients who have severe chronic pain, nausea, chronic insomnia. Melatonin I use a lot in doses of between 0.3 to 8 milligrams for kids and adults. Usually give it an hour or so before bedtime, usually in combination with about 5 herbs that I put together, 5 herbs and three average of 3 milligrams of melatonin. Take it about an hour and a half before, turn down the lights, turn off the electronics, be grateful, have a good time, and go to sleep. Chinese herbs also are very important. The heart holds the mind at night. The heart holds the mind. And a stagnated liver qi can also cause insomnia. And I listed there some of the Chinese herbs that, and Wendy has already mentioned some of them. So I'd like to then, now it's interesting that 5% of children, 15 to 20% of children at age 5 still wet the bed, and 2% of young adults. It's pretty embarrassing when you go off to college. And so when I help these these kids and these young adults, we use desmopressin, and also imipramine has been helpful to eliminate that problem. Then I mentioned here the herbs, which I always will use at night, sometimes starting with a tea right after dinner. I like to use a combination of them depending on the particular problem that they have, and that is all in the chapter as to which ones can help whatever symptom they're presenting to you. I like to use them for up to 4 hours before going to sleep, usually a couple of cups of tea, herbal tea, 1 4 hours and 1 2 hours before going to bed. And then melatonin we mentioned already, and there are those herbs with their various doses, and you have all this before you on your slides. But then Wendy, my good friend, talked about adaptogens and for exhaustion of many of the hormonal sites in the body. And reishi is a mushroom. And then we talked about eleuthera, romania, and rhodiola. Rhodiola is, thanks to my good friend Jim, is an adaptogen, and it also helps to be alert and awake. And a present from my good friend Jim was 200 milligrams about an hour, right before I started this lecture, and I feel great. So anyway, rhodiola is great. And holy basil, as Wendy mentioned, is also good for memory, as is rhodiola, and fatigue. So many times I suggest my patients put together a little tea, and this is some of the things that we talked about. Catnip is excitatory for cats and sedative for humans, and I do use hops, both kinds. No. So when you think about the healing arts, acupuncture, I just want to look at this yourselves, but there's not a whole lot of research showing that acupuncture has been that helpful in sleep. Biofeedback, healing touch is definitely helpful if you can arrange it. Oral appliances are not as good as a CPAP machine for rather severe obstructive sleep apnea, and you can adjust your time schedule to always go to bed at the same time and wake up. There are computerized cognitive behavioral therapy programs, which I really like. Sorry that I put this one down here. I don't know if this is, I use this one, I downloaded for my patients. This is an example of one. Massage is really a great idea before going to sleep, if you can get one. And the CPAP machines are wonderful within 2 weeks period of time of starting them if they can get used to it. In addition to this, so mindfulness is the whole idea of shifting the patient's habits during the day and the evening so that they're able to calm down and relax. CPT has been found to be as helpful as the sleeping pills, but the advantage is it has a longer effect, longer lasting effect, because you're training the patient's mind and attitude. And many times with mindfulness, all it takes is 8 training sessions, and they are good to go as far as getting a good night's sleep. They can purchase a few CDs, which are synthesized sounds and music to help sleep. That has been shown to work quite well to increase stage 3 and 4. And turn off the lights in the evening. But in the morning, to get a good night's sleep that night, it's a good idea to get an hour of sunlight. Good idea to get an hour of sunlight in the morning and get grounded. As Jim and I do, we take off our shoes and socks and we sit out in the backyard and pick up those negative electrons, so we do a little earthing. Get into some new habits of working effectively during the day and learning how to relax and have a good time at night. So we have to train ourselves to just simply calm down, turn off the thoughts, close your eyes, and drift off into natural sleep. Diet, better to have a protein meal than complex carbs and a lot of sugar and processed food. And I got to wrap this up. Have some enjoyable, fun activities at night. You can still have a good time singing, dancing, music, drawing, writing. Peace and quiet and sex before sleep can be wonderful. Actually, it can be wonderful anytime. Lev is going to talk to us more about that. There's a reference there, just came out in August of 13. All my references are in my chapter. And I just want to mention, I think I mentioned all of this to you, and these are the quick references for you. I really enjoyed this book by Ruben Nyman, PhD from the University of Arizona, on Healing Night. I have that available for my patients to purchase in the office. It's a wonderful book on knowing how to make this shift to return to the natural harmonious rhythms of nature. The National Sleep Foundation is a great resource, as is Medscape Resource Center on insomnia and sleep healthy patient education, and that chapter that I wrote at the end here. That's all, folks. So thank you for listening and not falling asleep, and for helping yourselves and patients align with nature and helping them get a healthy, good night's sleep and pleasant dreams. And that is it. Thank you very much.